Take you to this matter. South Africa has reported a 17.3% positivity rate of coronavirus infections. It comes after 5,284 infections were registered. The majority of infections emanate from Gauteng, followed by the Western Cape and KwaZulu-Natal. Now, yesterday, the National Institute for Communicable Diseases confirmed that officials are noticing a downward trend of daily infections for the second week in a row. Meanwhile, 41 people lost their lives to COVID-19 complications. 6 of those deaths occurred in the past 24 to 48 hours. For more now, we get analysis. We're joined by Professor of Vaccinology at Wits University, Shabir Madhi. Professor Madhi, very good afternoon to you. Thank you so much for your time. The current resurgence comes to an end. That's according to trends. What's your take?
Good afternoon. Very much so. So what we experienced in this resurgence was really a short duration of circulation of the virus. The number of hospitalizations was modest, and the number of people that died, fortunately, was extremely low. So we're very much on a downward trajectory with the current resurgence, and it really speaks to the issue of extensive immunity having built up in the community, largely because of past infection during the course of the first 4 waves, together with COVID-19 vaccine rollouts.
Is there any concern perhaps that perhaps these numbers may be underrepresented because there's a lot of fatigue now with people not necessarily going to get tested for COVID-19? How accurate are these figures?
Certainly, these numbers don't reflect the true number of people that have been infected. And in fact, even before the Omicron wave, South Africa was only identifying 1 out of every 10 people that were infected to the virus. So at best, this probably represents about 10%, if not fewer, of the number of people that are actually infected with the virus. But it's no longer about whether people are being infected or not. What matters most are whether people are ending up in hospital and dying of COVID-19. And that is the most important metric we need to keep our eye on. And all indications are that we're very much at the tail end of this pandemic in a country such as South Africa, where, as I mentioned, there's been evolution of extensive immunity, which protects quite well against severe disease. And that immunity has largely arisen because of infection in the past, which has come at tremendous cost. There's been loss of 300,000 lives. But it is what it is now, and we need to learn to start moving on.
With South Africa not out of the woods just yet, even with these new numbers coming out, what does it now speak to when it comes to the target age group? Who is mostly at risk as you take a look at the factors that are resulting in deaths increasing, the subvariants coming to the forefront?
So those that remain at greatest risk of ending up in hospital is pretty much the same as in the past, except that unvaccinated individuals are now included in that risk group. People above the age of 50, people who have got underlying immunosuppressive medical conditions, be it cancer, chronic problems of the heart, of the lungs, those individuals unfortunately still remain susceptible. They are protected, but their protection can be enhanced by them getting additional doses of vaccine. So yes, we are not completely out of the woods, but we are in a good space, but we can be in a much better space if those high-risk individuals in particular get vaccinated, because those additional doses, the second and third dose of vaccine in those high-risk individuals enhances their protection against severe disease, and that will result in a future resurgence, resulting in even fewer hospitalizations and death than we experienced this time around, which, as I mentioned, was pretty modest.
With the early indications suggesting that the resurgence is indeed coming to an end, where does it leave us now with the COVID-19? I mean, is it more, is it perhaps easier to predict where the situation is going, given what outcome we're receiving at this point, or is it a place where you can't really predict the trends of COVID-19 because of, the possibility of subvariants?
Well, it's about the variants that do arise, but again, if there are variants that arise that is able to evade that arm of the immune system, which protects us against severe disease, that will take us all the way back to March of 2020. The chances of that sort of a variant arising is extremely low. So where we are is that, yes, there will be future variants. Likely it's going to be a future resurgence in the next few months. But at the end of the day, again, it's no longer about infections that are transpiring. It's about whether those infections are materializing in severe disease. And I think for that, the future is much more predictable. in that the answer to that is that it's unlikely to result in anything compared with what we experienced in the far past, especially with the first 3 waves. So future resurgences will be probably similar to what we experienced this time around, which was really a mild wave.
Very well. Thank you so much for your time. Thanks for weighing in on this discussion, Professor of Vaccinology at Wits University, Shabir Madhi.